What if I told you that the life you've been chasing, the money, the freedom, the lifestyle, isn't hidden behind decades of hard work, sacrifice, and waiting, but behind a simple decision, a decision to stop following the wrong road? Because right now, without even realizing it, most people are trapped in a system that quietly trades their time for survival, convincing them that if they just work a little harder, save a little more, and wait a little longer, one day they'll finally be free. But as exposed in the Millionaire Fastlane, that a one day is the biggest lie ever sold, because time is slipping away every single day. And the longer you stay on that road, the further you drift from the life you actually want. And this is where everything changes. Because there is another way, a faster way, a smarter way. A way that doesn't require you to sacrifice your youth just to enjoy your old age. A way that allows you to build wealth while you are still young enough to live it, experience it, and enjoy it. And this is not about luck. This is not about being born rich. And this is not about some secret reserved for a select few. This is about understanding a different set of rules. Rules that most people never learn because they are too busy following the crowd, doing what they were told, and hoping it will somehow work out. But hope is not a strategy. And the fast lane is not built on hope. It is built on control, value, and leverage. Because if you don't control your income, you don't control your life. If you don't create value, you don't create wealth. And if you don't use leverage, your efforts will always be limited. And this is why the difference between those who struggle and those who thrive is not effort. It is direction. It is the road they choose to travel. Because one road trades time for money and keeps you stuck, while the other builds systems that make money independent of your time. And this is where financial freedom is born, not from working harder, but from working smarter, from creating something that serves many instead of just trading hours for dollars. And this is where your life begins to shift, because you stop asking, how can I make more money? And you start asking, how can I create more value? How can I reach more people? How can I build something that works even when I don't? And this is where the real journey begins, because the moment you see the difference, the moment you realize that you don't have to follow the path you've been given, you unlock a new level of possibility, a new level of control, and a new level of freedom. And the only question left is this: will you continue down the road that leads to average, or will you take the fast lane and create a life that most people only dream about but never dare to pursue? Imagine this for a moment. You're standing on the side of the road watching life pass you by, watching people wake up every morning, drag themselves to jobs they don't love, trade their time for money, save a little, invest a little, and hope that one day, maybe when they are 60 or 70, they'll finally be free, finally be able to live life on their terms, and deep down, something inside you whispers there has to be more than this, because you know you feel it, that this path, this so-called safe path, is not designed to make you rich. It's designed to keep you comfortable, predictable, average, and, as revealed in the Millionaire Fastlane, this is the greatest financial illusion ever sold, the idea that wealth comes from time, that you must wait decades, that you must sacrifice your youth, your energy, your dreams, just to maybe enjoy life at the very end. And this is where everything begins to shift. Because what if that entire roadmap is wrong? What if the problem is not your effort, not your intelligence, not your ambition, but the road you've been told to follow? Because there are three roads in life. The sidewalk, where people live for today without thinking about tomorrow. The slow lane, where people delay life in the hope of future security. And then there is the fast lane, the road that the few choose, the road that rewrites the rules, the road that says you don't have to wait 40 years to live rich. You can build wealth faster, smarter, and on your own terms. And this is not about luck. This is not about being born rich. And this is not about some secret reserved for a select few. This is about understanding the real equation of wealth, because wealth is not about income. It is about control. It is about control. Control over your time, control over your decisions, control over your life. And this is where most people lose the game before they even start, because they trade their time for money. And time is the one resource you can never get back. And this is why the fast lane is different. Because it is built on a completely different principle, not trading time for money, but creating systems that make money work for you, businesses, assets, and value that scale beyond your personal effort. And this is where financial freedom is born, not from saving pennies, but from creating value for millions. And this is where another powerful truth emerges, that if you want extraordinary wealth, you must create extraordinary impact. Because money is simply a reflection of the value you provide, and the more people you serve, the more wealth you create. And this is why the fast lane is not easy, but it is simple, because it requires you to think differently, to act differently, and to reject the beliefs that keep most people stuck. And this is where your journey begins, because the moment you question the path you are on, the moment you realize that you don't have to follow the crowd, you open the door to a completely new reality, a reality where wealth is not something you wait for, but something you build, where freedom is not delayed, but designed, and where your life is not dictated by a paycheck, but by your choices. And the only question now is, will you stay on the road you've been given, or will you choose to take the fast lane and create a life that most people only dream about? As you continue deeper into this journey, I want you to confront something uncomfortable, something that most people spend their entire lives avoiding, because the truth is, the path you are currently on may feel safe, it may feel logical, it may even feel responsible, but in reality, it is quietly stealing your life one day at a time. Because as revealed in the Millionaire Fastlane, the slow lane is not designed for freedom. It is designed for compliance. It is built on a simple trade, your time in exchange for money. And while that trade may seem fair at first, it is fundamentally flawed. Because time is finite, it is your most valuable asset, and once it is gone forever. And this is where most people lose the game without even realizing they are playing it, because they wake up early, commute to work, spend 8, 10, sometimes 12 hours building someone else's dream, come home exhausted, and repeat this cycle for decades, all while telling themselves that one day it will be worth it, one day they will retire, one day they will finally live, but that a one day is the biggest illusion of all. Because life is not waiting for you at the end of the road, it is happening right now. And this is where the first major awakening occurs, because you begin to see that wealth is not just about money. It is about freedom. Freedom, freedom of time, freedom of choice, freedom of location, and most importantly, freedom of life. And this is where the slow lane fails completely, because it ties your income directly to your time. Meaning if you stop working, the money stops, and if the money stops, your life becomes restricted. And this is why so many people feel trapped, not because they lack ability, but because they are operating within a system that limits them by design. And this is where the fast lane mindset begins to emerge. Because instead of asking, how can I make more money with my time? You begin to ask, how can I make money without trading my time? And that single question changes everything, because it shifts your focus from labor to leverage, from effort to systems, from linear income to exponential growth. And this is where the concept of control becomes critical, because if you do not control your income source, you do not control your life, and this is one of the most important financial freedom principles you will ever understand. That true wealth is not measured by how much you earn, but by how much control you have over your time and your income. And this is why jobs, while necessary for survival, are not vehicles for wealth. Because they limit your earning potential, they cap your growth, and they keep you dependent on an external source. And this is where another powerful truth emerges, that you cannot become wealthy by following the same path as everyone else. Because if everyone is doing it, it cannot lead to extraordinary results. It can only lead to average outcomes. And this is why the fast lane requires you to think differently, to act differently, and to step outside of the conventional system. And this is where the idea of value creation becomes the cornerstone of your journey, because money does not come from effort alone. It comes from value, from solving problems, from meeting needs, and from creating something that others are willing to pay for. And this is why the wealthiest individuals are not those who work the hardest, but those who create the most value for the most people. And this is where scalability enters the equation. Because if your income is tied to your time, it is limited. But if your income is tied to a system, a business, or a product that can reach thousands, millions, or even billions of people, your potential becomes unlimited. And this is where the fast lane separates itself from the slow lane, because it is not about working more hours. It is about building something that works for you, something that generates income even when you are not actively involved. And this is where financial freedom becomes possible, because when your income is no longer dependent on your time, you gain the ability to live life on your own terms. And this is where another critical principle comes into play, that wealth is a process, not an event. Because while the fast lane can accelerate your journey, it still requires effort, discipline, and persistence. It requires you to take risks, to face uncertainty, and to push beyond your comfort zone. And this is where most people hesitate, because the unknown is uncomfortable. It is unpredictable. And it challenges everything they have been taught, but this is also where opportunity lives, because growth does not happen in comfort. It happens in challenge, it happens in uncertainty, and it happens when you are willing to take action despite fear. And this is where your mindset becomes your greatest asset, because if you believe that wealth is only possible through time and hard work, you will remain stuck in the slow lane. But if you begin to see wealth as a function of value, leverage, and control, you open the door to a completely new reality. And this is where your journey begins to accelerate, because you are no longer bound by the limitations of time. You are no longer restricted by the constraints of a job. And you are no longer waiting for permission to live your life. And as you continue forward, remember this powerful truth. You don't get rich by earning money. You get rich by creating systems that generate money, because this is the essence of the fast lane, not working harder, but working smarter, not trading time, but creating leverage. And when you fully embrace this principle, you don't just change your income, you change your entire life trajectory. And that is where your transformation truly begins. As you move further along this road, something begins to click at a deeper level, something that most people never fully grasp, because they are too busy chasing money instead of understanding where money actually comes from. And this is where one of the most powerful realizations of the Millionaire Fastlane comes into focus, that wealth is not about chasing cash, it is about creating value, because money is simply a byproduct, a reflection of the value you deliver to the marketplace. And this is where most people get it completely wrong, because they focus on their own needs, their own desires, their own financial goals, asking questions like, how can I make more money? How can I earn more? How can I get rich? But the fast lane flips this entirely. It forces you to ask a different question, a more powerful question. How can I serve more people? How can I solve bigger problems? How can I create something that truly matters? Because the more people you impact, the more value you create. And the more value you create, the more wealth flows back to you. And this is not theory. This is the fundamental law of wealth. And once you understand it, everything changes, because you stop focusing on yourself and start focusing on others. And this is where opportunity begins to reveal itself, because problems are everywhere. Inefficiencies are everywhere. Frustrations are everywhere. And each one of them represents a potential gateway to wealth. But only if you are willing to see it, only if you are willing to act on it. And this is where most people fail. Not because they lack ideas, but because they lack execution. They wait, they hesitate, they overthink, and in doing so, they miss the very opportunities that could change their lives. And this is why one of the most powerful principles you must adopt is this: execution beats ideas every single time, because an idea without action is nothing more than a wish. And this is where the fast lane demands something different from you. It demands that you move, that you act, that you create, even when you are unsure, even when you are uncomfortable, because clarity does not come from thinking, it comes from doing. And this is where another critical concept emerges, the difference between interest and commitment. Because many people are interested in success, they read books, they watch videos, they talk about their goals, but very few are committed. Very few are willing to do whatever it takes to push through obstacles, to endure failure, and to keep going when things don't work out. And this is where the separation happens, because those who are merely interested will quit when it gets hard, but those who are committed will find a way. And this is where your journey becomes real, because you will face challenges, you will encounter setbacks, and you will question yourself. But these moments are not signs to stop. They are tests. Tests of your commitment, tests of your resilience, and tests of your belief in what you are building. And this is where another powerful truth becomes clear, that failure is not the opposite of success. It is a part of it, because every failure contains information, it contains lessons, it contains insights that bring you closer to your goal, and this is why the Fastlane mindset embraces failure, not as something to avoid, but as something to learn from, something to use, something to leverage for growth. And this is where your perspective shifts. Because instead of fearing failure, you begin to expect it, to learn from it, and to use it as fuel to move forward. And this is where your progress accelerates, because you are no longer held back by fear, you are driven by purpose. And this is where another essential principle comes into play, the commandment of need. Because if you want to build wealth, you must create something that people need, not just something you want to build, because the marketplace does not reward your passion, it rewards value, it rewards solutions, and it rewards impact. And this is why so many businesses fail, because they are built on selfish motives instead of market needs. And this is where you must discipline yourself to think differently, to step outside of your own perspective and into the perspective of others, to understand their problems, their frustrations, and their desires, and to build something that addresses those needs effectively. And this is where scalability becomes your greatest ally, because solving a small problem for a few people will generate small results. But solving a big problem for many people will generate massive results. And this is where exponential growth becomes possible, because your income is no longer tied to your time. It is tied to the value you create and the number of people you reach. And this is where financial freedom begins to take shape, because when your systems, your products, or your businesses are generating income independently of your direct effort, you gain the ability to step back, to enjoy your life, and to focus on what truly matters. And this is where another powerful financial principle aligns perfectly, that leverage is the key to wealth, because without leverage, your efforts remain limited. But with leverage, your impact multiplies, your income scales, and your opportunities expand. And this is why the Fastlane is not about working harder. It is about working smarter. It is about building systems that work for you. And this is where your mindset must evolve, because you are no longer just a worker. You are a creator, a problem solver, a value generator. And this is where your identity begins to shift, because you start to see yourself not as someone who earns money, but as someone who creates it. And this is where your life begins to transform, because when you understand that money follows value, that execution drives results. And that commitment determines your success. You gain a level of control that most people never experience. And as you continue forward, remember this powerful truth: the marketplace rewards value, not effort. Because when you align your actions with this principle, when you focus on solving real problems and creating real impact, you don't just increase your chances of success, you make it inevitable. And that is where your journey truly accelerates. As you continue forward, the road becomes clearer, but also more demanding, because now you are no longer just questioning the old system. You are beginning to dismantle it entirely, piece by piece, belief by belief, and replacing it with something far more powerful, far more intentional, and far more aligned with true wealth creation. Because as revealed in the Millionaire Fastlane, success is not just about choosing a different road. It is about understanding the rules that govern that road, the principles that determine whether you accelerate or remain stuck. And this is where the Fastlane commandments emerge as your guiding force, because without structure, without principles, even the most ambitious individual can drift into chaos, confusion, and wasted effort. And this is why clarity is power, because when you know the rules, you can play the game effectively. And the first rule, the one that underpins everything, is the commandment of control. Because if you do not control your business, your system, or your income stream, you do not truly own it. And if you do not own it, you are vulnerable to decisions, policies, and changes that are completely outside of your influence. And this is where many aspiring entrepreneurs fail, because they build on platforms they do not control. They rely on systems they do not own, and they place their future in the hands of others. And this is no different than a job. Because at any moment, that control can be taken away, and when it is, everything you have built can disappear. And this is why ownership is not optional. It is essential because true wealth requires control. Control over your direction, your decisions, and your destiny. And this is where another powerful principle comes into play, the commandment of entry, because not all opportunities are created equal. And while it may be tempting to chase easy money, to pursue ventures with low barriers to entry, these paths are often crowded, competitive, and ultimately unsustainable, because when something is easy to enter, it is easy to replicate, and when it is easy to replicate, it becomes commoditized. And when it becomes commoditized, profits shrink, competition increases, and your advantage disappears. And this is why the fast lane demands that you think differently, that you seek opportunities that require effort, skill, innovation, and uniqueness. Because these are the opportunities that create real value. And this is where another key principle emerges, the commandment of need. Because at the core of every successful business, every successful product, and every successful venture is a simple truth. It solves a problem. It fulfills a need. And this is why chasing passion alone is dangerous, because passion without demand leads to frustration. But when you align passion with need, when you build something that people genuinely want and are willing to pay for, you create a foundation for sustainable success. And this is where the commandment of scale becomes critical. Because if your business cannot reach many people, if it cannot grow beyond your personal effort, it will always be limited. And this is where the fast lane separates itself from traditional thinking, because it is not about serving one person at a time. It is about serving many. It is about creating systems, products, or services that can impact thousands, millions, or even billions. And this is where exponential growth becomes possible, because your income is no longer tied to your time. It is tied to your reach. And this is where another powerful principle comes into focus, the commandment of time. Because the ultimate goal is not just to make money, it is to free your time. It is to create a system that generates income without requiring your constant presence. Because if your business depends entirely on you, if it cannot operate without your direct involvement, you have not built a fast lane business. You have simply created another job. This is where many people get stuck because they replace one form of employment with another, thinking they have escaped, when in reality, they are still trading time for money. And this is why the fast lane requires a shift in thinking. From working in your business to building a business that works for you, and this is where financial freedom begins to take shape. Because when your income is no longer dependent on your time, you gain the ability to live life on your terms. And this is where another critical financial principle aligns perfectly, that leverage is the foundation of wealth, because without leverage, your efforts remain limited. But with leverage, your impact multiplies, your income scales, and your opportunities expand. And this is why the most successful individuals are not those who work the hardest, but those who build systems that work the smartest. And this is where your focus must remain on creating value, on building systems, and on aligning your efforts with the principles that drive exponential growth. And this is where your journey becomes intentional, because you are no longer guessing. You are no longer experimenting without direction. You are building with purpose, with clarity, and with a deep understanding of what it takes to succeed. And as you continue forward, remember this powerful truth. Don't need to be the best. You need to be the most valuable. Because when you focus on solving real problems, when you build something that truly matters, and when you align your actions with the fast lane principles, you don't just increase your chances of success. You position yourself for extraordinary results, and that is where your transformation begins to accelerate beyond anything you once thought possible. As you step into this next phase, everything begins to sharpen, because now you are no longer just understanding the fast lane. You are beginning to live it, to breathe it, to see the world through a completely different lens. And this is where most people hesitate, because this is the stage where ideas must become execution, where knowledge must become action, and where intention must become results. Because as revealed in the Millionaire Fastlane, the difference between those who dream about wealth and those who actually achieve it is not intelligence, not resources, not even opportunity. It is execution, relentless, consistent, focused execution. And this is where one of the most important truths emerges, that action is the bridge between where you are and where you want to be. Because without action, everything you have learned, everything you have planned, and everything you believe means absolutely nothing. And this is why the fast lane rejects perfection, because waiting for the perfect idea, the perfect moment, or the perfect plan is just another form of procrastination. And this is where you must shift your mindset. From planning to doing, from thinking to acting, because clarity is not found in theory, it is found in execution. And this is where another powerful principle comes into play, speed. Because in the fast lane, speed matters, not reckless speed, but intentional, decisive movement. Because the faster you act, the faster you learn, and the faster you learn, the faster you improve. And this is where momentum is created, because each action builds on the last, each step moves you forward, and each result provides feedback that helps you refine your approach. And this is where your growth becomes exponential, because you are no longer stuck in analysis, you are in motion, and motion creates opportunity. And this is where another critical insight emerges, that failure is not something to avoid, it is something to leverage, because every mistake, every setback, and every misstep contains valuable information that can guide you, improve you, and bring you closer to your goal. And this is why the fast lane mindset embraces failure, not as a sign of weakness, but as a necessary part of the process. Because those who succeed are not those who avoid failure, but those who learn from it, adapt, and continue moving forward. And this is where resilience becomes your greatest asset, because the road to wealth is not smooth. It is filled with obstacles, challenges, and moments of doubt. And it is in these moments that your commitment is tested, because it is easy to move forward when things are going well, but it is difficult to continue when things are uncertain, when results are not immediate, and when progress feels slow. And this is where most people quit. But this is also where the few who succeed push through, because they understand that success is not built in moments of comfort, it is built in moments of challenge. And this is where another powerful principle becomes clear, that your environment plays a critical role in your success. Because the people you surround yourself with, the information you consume, and the habits you maintain all influence your mindset, your decisions, and your actions. And this is why you must be intentional about your environment. Because if you surround yourself with negativity, doubt, and limitation, you will adopt those same patterns. But if you surround yourself with growth, ambition, and possibility, you will elevate your thinking and expand your potential. And this is where another key financial freedom principle aligns perfectly, that your network is your leverage. Because opportunities, partnerships, and ideas often come through the people you know. And this is why building strong relationships is not just beneficial, it is essential. Because it amplifies your reach, your resources, and your ability to create value. And this is where your journey begins to accelerate, because you are no longer operating alone. You are connected, supported, and aligned with others who share your vision. And this is where another critical concept emerges, the importance of focus, because in a world filled with distractions, opportunities, and endless possibilities, it is easy to spread yourself too thin, to chase too many ideas, and to lose direction. And this is why the fast lane emphasizes the power of focus, because when you concentrate your energy on one path, one idea, one system, you increase your chances of success dramatically. And this is where the principle of monogamy over polygamy comes into play. Because trying to pursue multiple ventures at once often leads to mediocre results, while focusing on one allows you to build depth, mastery, and momentum. And this is where your progress becomes consistent. Because you are no longer dividing your attention, you are directing it. And this is where another powerful truth emerges, that success is not about doing more, it is about doing what matters most, consistently and with intention. And this is where your discipline becomes your greatest ally, because discipline allows you to stay focused, to stay committed, and to continue moving forward even when motivation fades. And this is where your identity begins to shift, because you are no longer someone who is trying to succeed. You are someone who operates with clarity, purpose, and determination. And this is where your results begin to reflect your efforts. Because when your actions are aligned with your goals, when your focus is clear, and when your commitment is unwavering, progress becomes inevitable. And as you continue forward, remember this powerful truth. Execution is the difference between knowledge and results, because no matter how much you learn, no matter how much you plan, and no matter how much you dream, it is your actions that ultimately determine your success. And when you commit to taking consistent, focused action, you don't just move closer to your goals, you transform your entire life. And that is where the fast lane truly begins to reward you. And now, as you arrive at the final stretch of this journey, everything converges into one undeniable truth, one principle that separates those who merely chase wealth from those who actually attain it. Because at this level, it is no longer about ideas, no longer about learning, and no longer even about strategy. It is about identity. It is about who you become in the process of pursuing the fast lane. Because as revealed in the Millionaire Fastlane, your vehicle to wealth is not your business, not your product, not your system. Your vehicle is you, your mindset, your discipline, your ability to execute, adapt, and persist. And this is where everything becomes deeply personal, because you begin to realize that success is not something external that you acquire. It is something internal that you develop, and this is where the final transformation takes place. Because you stop looking for shortcuts, you stop looking for easy answers, and you start focusing on becoming the kind of person who creates results consistently, relentlessly, and intentionally. And this is where ownership becomes the foundation of your life. Because if you do not take full responsibility for your choices, your actions, and your outcomes, you will always remain at the mercy of external circumstances. And this is why one of the most powerful fast lane principles is accountability, because accountability gives you control, and control gives you power, and power allows you to shape your future. And this is where most people struggle, because it is easier to blame, easier to justify, and easier to remain comfortable. But comfort is the enemy of growth, and growth is the pathway to wealth. And this is where you must make a decision, a clear, definitive decision, that you will no longer settle for average, that you will no longer follow the crowd, and that you will no longer accept a life that does not align with your potential. And this is where your standards rise, because you begin to expect more from yourself, more from your actions, and more from your results. And this is where another powerful truth emerges. That time is your most valuable asset, because unlike money, it cannot be earned back, it cannot be saved, and it cannot be replaced. And this is why the fast lane is not just about making money. It is about reclaiming your time. It is about creating a life where your time is yours, where your days are not dictated by a schedule, a boss, or an obligation, but by your choices, your priorities, and your vision. And this is where financial freedom becomes meaningful, because it is not just about having money, it is about having the freedom to live life on your terms. And this is where another critical financial principle comes into focus, that wealth is not about consumption, it is about control, because buying expensive things does not make you wealthy. Owning assets that generate income does, and this is where your mindset must evolve from being a consumer to being a creator, from spending to investing, from short-term gratification to long-term freedom. And this is where discipline becomes your greatest asset, because discipline allows you to make decisions that align with your future, even when they conflict with your present desires. And this is where your habits begin to define your destiny, because what you do consistently shapes who you become. And who you become determines what you achieve. And this is where another powerful insight emerges, that success is not a destination, it is a continuous process. Because even after you achieve financial freedom, even after you build wealth, the journey does not end. It evolves, it expands, and it challenges you in new ways. And this is why the fast lane is not just a strategy, it is a lifestyle, it is a way of thinking, a way of acting, and a way of living that continues to push you toward growth, toward improvement, and toward greater impact. And this is where your focus shifts from simply making money to creating value, to building something meaningful, and to contributing to the lives of others. Because true wealth is not just measured by what you have, but by what you give. And this is where fulfillment is found. Not in accumulation, but in contribution, not in taking, but in creating. And this is where your journey comes full circle, because you realize that everything you have learned, every principle, every lesson, and every experience has been preparing you for this moment, the moment where you take full control of your life, where you commit to your growth, and where you step into your full potential. And as you move forward from here, remember this powerful truth. Your life is a direct reflection of the choices you make every single day. Because this is the essence of the fast lane. Not luck, not chance, but choice, deliberate, intentional, and consistent choices that shape your future. And when you fully embrace this, when you take ownership, when you commit to creating value, and when you build systems that work for you, you don't just achieve financial freedom, you create a life of purpose, abundance, and extraordinary possibility. And that is the true destination of the fast lane, not just wealth, but a life fully lived on your own terms.